Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of. Was it? Yeah, it's episode 3. uh, Welcome to episode 3 of Behind a Character. Today we are going to be going through Moon, Dominic. I don't know. I don't know why I gave him that last name. Realistically, I switched a first name with a last name, and it was just something I had to think up of because I didn't really have a name for him when I turned him into an actual character. But Moon started out as actually an OC for my good friend and ex. He wanted me to create him a My Little Pony OC back in freshman year. A lot of characters I'll talk about have started either in middle school or freshman year. And Moon was originally supposed to be, oh god, how do I explain this? I believe a shadow guard for Princess Luna. It was weird and it was bad. I, for some reason, gave him gradient on his legs because that was a popular thing in the My Little Pony community back then. And same with his hairstyle. As you can see from Will's video, it was a similar kind of tail as well, and a few of my other characters from back then had that kind of tail as well. When I was looking for reference images, I found an old character that I made in, oh god, what was it? 7th grade, I think, who was a unicorn who had that tail, and I was obsessed with this kind of hairstyle, this big poofy spiky looking thing. I have no idea why, to be completely honest, but it was a thing. So there's not much to go off of on here, and basically what ended up happening is I would use him a lot in vent art and a lot of gore art as well, and my ex eventually stopped using the character, which I was fine with, and he eventually came to me and was like, hey, can you design me a character that more fits with me? I was like, sure. Could I keep the design for your old one? He's like, yeah, definitely. And that was kind of how I started developing Moon into his own character, and I didn't really use him a lot after my freshman and I think sophomore year. I kind of used him a little less too, and it was because I just wasn't really doing a lot with either Gold or him, and because not only was the character my good friend / ex's old character, and we dated, I decided to make him as well Gold's ex, which was a little weird at first to some of my friends, but it was fine. And it kind of developed into the story we know now, where Gold and Moon were together since high school, and then bad shit happened. He cheated with oh god, I think her name's Miranda or some shit like that. I'm really bad at remembering names, if you guys can't tell. Let me look. Maria. That was close. Miranda, Maria, same name. And so there wasn't much going on for him until I started putting together Gold's story for Psychosis, and it was just a good time. And here you can see me trying to figure out how to do the gradient. I ended up going with Paint Tool Size gradient feature, and just went ham on it. Color picking for this one was a little difficult, but not as difficult as the next one when I changed up his colors a bit. Not too drastically. I darkened his purple, I darkened his hair, I made his orange brighter. I basically used MS Paint it's a color palette for it, which was fun. That was a fun time. A lot of my digital art back then was used with, as I mentioned in my gold speed paint, that I used a lot of bases, and I used a lot of MS Paint, and eventually I got GIMP and started using that for all my shading, which was an experience. And God, I keep finding like all this old art when I do these, and oh, it's bad. You guys don't understand how bad it is. Like, seriously. It was a mess. But so, anyway, there's not much really to talk about his design process. It was really just, hey, let me make my friend an OC. He didn't want that OC after a while, wanted a new one. And I was like, okay, as long as I can keep using this design, I'll be happy. And I didn't mind making him a new one. I don't think I actually ever got around to doing it. Because, God, when did he message me about that? That was like a couple years ago by now, maybe more. But yeah. So if you're curious about the pause here, I was trying to find a better reference image than just using Moon's current colors on it, because they are a little different from here. So as you can see, I use this old MS Paint base that I shaded and awfully in GIMP, and I did my best to color pick from it. I ended up turning the brightness up on the image so I can try and color pick it a bit better, which didn't work out so well. And after recording, I fixed up his colors a bit. Just his skin colors. His hair was fine. It was just too dark. It's definitely fun to go back and draw these old versions of characters. It's like a little trip down memory lane, and it's great. As you can see, I'm trying to brighten up the image, try and get the colors better. And some of his hairstyle. Again, you can see that big poofy spiky hair thing coming back. So I wanted to explain a little bit the story with him and his brother and Gold. And I want to do that without giving too many spoilers away. Because soon I should have the first 5 pages of Psychosis ready, and I'll make a little announcement trailer for that. And it at first will be only available on my Patreon for $3. But eventually, once I get at least done with the first chapter, I'll put it on Webtoons or something like that. Whatever online comic thing I decide to do it on. Might do Smack Jeeves, honestly. Their system looks pretty easy to handle. But so basically, as I mentioned in the last episode, Will and Moon are brothers, but they're not technically brothers, if that makes sense. They're half brothers. They have the same father, but they have different mothers. And basically what happened is Moon's mother died at a very young age, and he was living with his father for most of his life, while Will's mother raised Will. And after Will's mother died, he went to go live with Moon and their dad. And Moon was always kind of jealous of Will for getting to know his own mom, and kind of jealous that he was his brother. He was happy. Not happy. His father wasn't the best person. But he wasn't exactly happy that he had a brother suddenly. And he kind of... It took him a few years to warm up to Will, and eventually he and Will got extremely close. That was until they met Gold. Moon already knew Gold because they went to the same school. But when Will ended up transferring to the same school, Moon realized that Will liked Gold, and he didn't want that to happen because he also liked Gold. So he swooped in first and in high school asked Gold out, which kind of put a rift in their bond, their brotherly bond. And that never kind of went away. And Will did his best to stay on good terms for Gold's sake and for Bethany's sake when she was born, because he wanted to take care of his little niece better than Moon was, because Moon was an asshole and an abusive little shit. And then when Moon finally decided that because they had a kid and stuff that they should get married, and it was mostly Will convincing him that he needs to do that because it wasn't healthy for either of their relationships to not be that way. And so that's when they find out about Maria, and chaos ensues, and Will ends up taking Gold and Bethany in because she gets kicked out of their house. And that's kind of where things start with Gold becoming Gold, and Will helping him with the whole experimental turning into a full-on guy, which I'll probably flesh out a little better later on. I haven't really fleshed out that part of the storyline too well, because trying to figure out what different machines Will has created will do is a little difficult. It's easier on his experiments because they're actual characters and stuff, like Glitch, and Heathen and... Not Heathen. Is it? Yeah, it's Heathen and Caravana. But, anyway. So, that's the basic gist of Moon's backstory. Without giving too much away. And not giving too much away about gold and stuff. Now, as you can see, his colors, at least skin-wise, is a little too dark from what I should have been sampling. So I ended up lightening it a bit, and it looks a lot better. Because on my tablet screen, it looked extremely dark. It doesn't look that dark in the video, but it was bad. And now we get to the main gist of it, Moon's final design, where he is basically the same, just I made him look like an absolute asshole. And unlike in this reference image I did, which was simplified for an animation I'm planning on working on, which hopefully I'll have finished for Halloween, because it's a spooky one. It kind of delves into the backstory of the characters a little bit, without giving too much away. Psychosis is one of my few projects that actually you can know a lot about. I am not as secretive with, not like Year Zero or Shadowlands. I don't think I've ever really talked about Shadowlands on here or done anything with Shadowlands, but I'm planning on it. There's some animations I want to do with Shadowlands that I've been planning for a while. But when I was creating his hairstyle, I was basing it off of Will's hair and his old hair, obviously. And that was mostly because of the whole half-brother thing. It was a lot more difficult with Moon when designing him for some reason, because I had this specific image of him in my head from all of the previous years of using him. And I ended up making him like a buff version of Will in this. But it wasn't too bad. I actually really like how his design looks now. It's clean, it's simple, and it's just a really nice color palette. I really like this kind of color palette with the green and other color in hair type thing. Same with what Will has, but kind of lighter. I think part of the reason why I stopped using him my sophomore year of high school is because at the time I still kind of associated the character with my ex, and at that time we'd mended our friendship and stuff after our breakup, and he was helping me a lot through my transition at my school, because it was a really rough time. Not a lot of people were accepting of it, and that's a whole other story for another time. But I just had I wasn't comfortable using a character that I still associated with my ex in more vintage things, and that's kind of when I created Sparta to use as a character then instead of Gold, because it just didn't feel right to me for some reason, which I understand how I felt, but now that, and even back then, we both knew that Moon wasn't really the right character for my ex to have, and we ended up, as I mentioned, talking about how he just didn't feel that he connected with that character anymore. As you can see, I'm kind of struggling with the colors here because they looked a lot, they look a lot lighter than they do in his reference sheet, and I don't know if it's hard to tell right now if it looks lighter, because it kind of does, it kind of doesn't, but on my tablet screen it looked like he was much darker than the color I was getting from the sampling. So I kind of struggled with that for a bit, but eventually I just kind of calmed down and was just like, yeah, I won't bother trying to make it look better. Another thing you'll notice in the final image is that I fixed up his orange streak in his back hair, or whatever you'd want to call it. I fixed it up a bit so it looks more, it's actually there.